Today on our Meet the Athlete series, we are taking a look at the deadlift monster that is Rauno Heinla. Auntie Liz, you've got to be happy to see Rauno back at World's Strongest Man.
I'm happy we've got to the point where we can make this video for him, because obviously last year he was invited to the show but he decided to pull out, and you know, he did the right thing because he wasn't in shape for it, and it meant we gained Mitch Hooper.
We did indeed. Rauno is the reason that Mitch Hooper ended up being able to compete at Worlds last year.
And he has all the regret.
You guys tell us, who's got the better butt? Fucking idiot!
He's been training really hard for this year's. He did pull out of Europe's Strongest Man, but he has assured us he's feeling fit and healthy now and ready to get to World's Strongest Man.
So let's kick things off with some stats and facts about Rauno Heinla. So while it feels like Rauno's been around forever, he's only actually competed at World's Strongest Man the one time, which was in 2011. Rauno unfortunately found himself in a very tough group with Brian Shaw, Thor Bjornsson, Mark Felix, JF Caron and Nick Best, and he placed 5th there overall.
That's a damn tough group.
It's a horrible group, it's like baptism of fire. Rauno has won 4 international competitions throughout his career so far, and they consist of 2 Strongman Champions League shows, the Arnold's South America and the Arnold's Australia. Rauno is also a 2-time winner of the Deadlift World Championships and holds multiple world records in the deadlift, including the 476 kilo Master Deadlift World Record, the 400 kilo deadlift for reps, and the Silver Dollar Deadlift. And one last fun little fact, Rauno returns to World's Strongest Man after an 11-year hiatus, which is the record for the longest break between World's Strongest Man appearances.
It's quite crazy to think that Rauno hasn't competed at World's Strongest Man for 11 years because he's such a prominent figure in so many competitions. He's competed at all the major shows. He's normally hitting podiums in internationals almost every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's done well. Like, he was on the Arnold Strongman Classic scene for a couple of years, doing well there. So it is crazy that it's taken this long, but we are finally there. We all did it collectively as a group, and we should all be very proud of ourselves.
So let's get down to the nitty-gritty and talk events. Can Rauno Heinla make the final? How can we expect him to do at this year's competition?
So they are starting off in the heats with the loading race. Now, Rauno is a master, and we all know that things start to slow down as you get older.
What are you saying?
I'm speaking from personal experience. Now, I know that...
Is that from your own experience or living with a master?
Well, both. When it comes to loading, Rauno would much better suit it if it is heavier. At the Arnold's USA in 2020, they did a very heavy loading race. It was the implements weighed up to about 186 kilos, and he placed 2nd there, beating guys like Brian Shaw, JF Caron, and some really good strongmen.
Yeah, Rauno is more of a powerhouse than a speed athlete. He's not so good when it comes to those kind of sprint type races. He likes things to be hard and heavy. And I'm not sure what the weights are going to be yet at World's Strongest Man, but I don't think loading is going to be the start that he wants.
But then we're going to be moving on to his favourite event, and it will be the deadlift machine.
Yeah, and this is an event where no matter how the first event goes, he's going to pick up big points. Rauno, arguably the best deadlifter in the world. I think a couple of people could probably throw themselves into that category right now, but it's hard to see many people in a group at World's Strongest Man beating Rauno Heinla at a deadlift of any sorts.
No. And then we move into the log ladder, which will be a very interesting one. And I think his results there will be very much dependent on who he's up against, which is obvious for everyone. But he's not a bad log lifter, is he?
Not at all. He's a good log lifter. The only issue that Rauno has right now is a bit of a lack of mobility, which sometimes catches up on him in terms of not fully locking out. So he's going to need to make sure those reps are kind of crisp and perfect, gets the down signal from the referee. But he's more than strong enough to manhandle some of these weights. And I think he can transition pretty quickly. It just comes down to making sure you don't make any mistakes on this one. Now, the next event is the Conan's Wheel, and I think a lot of people will expect Rauno to not be that good at this type of event. But actually, quite the contrary, he's very good at Conan's, some brilliant performances in the past, and I think he's feeling very confident on this event.
Yeah, definitely. I know he was, he's done it a couple of times in competition, and either been first or second. He was training with Ivers in the lead up to Europe's and beating Ivers in training, who did pretty well at the competition at Europe's Strongest Man. So yeah, I don't think Rauno's going to have any concerns with this one, and he could take people by surprise.
Absolutely. Then we move on to the kettlebell throw, and again, he's a very competent thrower. I wouldn't go out there and say he's like one of the best ever, but he's certainly not bad as well. He can certainly pick up decent points. Could depend on who's in his group, but he is more than capable of throwing these type of implements and scoring decent points.
So realistically, I can very much see Rauno finding himself in a stone-off scenario.
I agree.
If it does come to that, doing a stone off will be much better suited to his strengths than doing an actual stone run for speed.
Yeah, well, we spoke about how speed isn't necessarily the best thing for him when it comes to loading, and I agree with that on the stones as well. Rauno, at Australia's Strongest International, he loaded a 220 kilo stone, was it?
Yeah, he did.
And he made it look comfortable.
Yeah.
He is very good at lifting heavy stones. He's not the best at sprinting through a set of stones really, really quickly. But I think this format actually suits Rauno, and if he's in second place, so he gets the advantage on the stones, he's going to make himself hard to beat for pretty much anyone out there.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see Rauno in with a chance of making the final. And one thing I think that will suit Rauno about World's Strongest Man as opposed to maybe a Giants Live show. Giants Live shows are very fast paced.
Very.
I think these type of events like a Conan Circle going into like a deadlift, he would have struggled a bit more in terms of recovery at Europe's Strongest Man.
Yeah.
At World's Strongest Man, he's going to get much longer breaks. He will be able to recover, and I think that suits an athlete like Rauno.
It does.
So we'll take a look at the events of the final, starting with the fingers.
Yeah.
Now, this is an event that I don't expect Rauno to do that well at.
And weirdly, like, with a career as long as Rauno's, you would expect him to have done it at some point, but I couldn't find anything in his track record. I'm sure
he'll tell you that he has somewhere,
Yeah.
and he'll probably tell you that he was good at it. But just with, like, as he's aged, his mobility's not as good as it used to be. He struggles more with that lockout in terms of the triceps. I think he's a shorter athlete as well. Mm-hmm. I think this event will be a struggle for him.
An event that shouldn't be a struggle for Rauno would be the Kanak deadlift for reps. Now, Rauno's one of the best deadlifters in the world right now, as you said. I can't see anyone probably other than maybe Pavlo beating him who's likely to make the final.
It all depends on how kind of beat up he is at this point.
Yeah,
Rauno on a deadlift. The great thing for Rauno is he has events that he can beat anyone at, such as a deadlift, and that gives you big points and makes you competitive. So even with a bad performance on the fingers, I think the deadlift is going to pull him straight back into the competition and you know, settle him into the contest. Deadlift for Rauno is very rare you see him outside the top 3. He could potentially win it second, but it's going to be big points regardless. Now, like the Conan Circle, the shield carry should be a better event than people would expect for Rauno. He's done very well on shield carries before, beating the likes of Alexei Novikov. I think he was 4th at Europe's Strongest Man on this event last year while he was ill. We saw him do very well at Australia's Strongest International recently on the Quest carry, which was a stone carry. He is very good at these type of events. And again, it's an event you just don't associate with someone like Rauno, but he's good at carrying things for distance. So I'd expect good points on this one.
Now, the max dumbbell. Rauno's a decent dumbbell lifter. He's done 120 kilos in competition before, which is, you know, solid numbers. But we know there are some exceptionally good dumbbell presses coming to this competition.
Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't expect Rauno to be at his best on dumbbell as well currently. So I think anything less than 120 is going to score pretty low. You're going to have a couple of guys that could be battling for 150. I think there's going to be a few guys around the 130 mark, and there's going to be a lot around the 120 mark. So anything less than 120, you're going to be down near the bottom. That being said, they are new dumbbells. They're going to be quite big dumbbells. They could throw people off a little bit, and Rauno does have experience and the ability to adapt. So we will see, but I don't expect huge points from Rauno on the dumbbell. Event number 5 is the truck pull. Now, for a man that has torn both his Achilles, I can't see him doing all that well on this one in a World's Strongest Man final. You know, you're going up against the best in the world. He's not bad, you know, he's kind of picked up points on truck pulls before. He's a dogged fighter, determined. But when you've got the likes of potentially a Brian Shaw in there, a Tom Stoltman, Mateusz Kiliashkovsky, these kind of monsters at truck pulling, I can't see Rauno scoring a huge amount of points on this one. I've got one torn Achilles and it's messing me up on a truck pull.
Yeah.
A man with two torn Achilles, it really makes things difficult.
So they're finishing on the Atlas stones. Now, Rauno is a very decent stone lifter, as we talked about before. In this sort of lineup, over this long format competition, everyone's going to be feeling it, aren't they?
Well, honestly, knowing Rauno as I do, I think if Rauno gets to this point of the competition, he's going to be a very happy man.
He should be, proud.
His goal, I think, is to try and get to the final and show that he's deserving of being there. He'll want to go and put a solid performance in. I think he's realistic. He knows he's not the best stone lifter, particularly in a run like this, and he knows that this length of competition, he's going to start feeling it. With a slower pace definitely suits him, but you're going to be talking about potentially 12 events for Rauno. His body will be feeling it at this point. There are some exceptional stone lifters, but he'll want to go and put a solid performance in. I think he's more than capable of that. And like I said, if he makes the final, he's going to be really, really pleased. So looking at the events, I think Rauno, I can't see him being outside the top 3 as long as he doesn't get injured. He's very good at most of the events in the heats.
Yeah.
The final event's a little bit tougher for him, but he does have a couple of events where he can bank big points. So always make someone like Rauno dangerous. We would love to see him get to the final.
Oh man, I'd be so happy for him. That would just be like, yes, finally.
But I can't see him being a contender for top 5 or anything like that. But we love to see Rauno in the final. Let us know your thoughts, guys. Do you think Rauno can make it to the final? Are we talking rubbish?
No.
But go and look back at Rauno's history. He's really not bad at the events we mentioned, and hopefully he comes in good shape. We want to see him back at World's Strongest Man after an 11-year absence. Let us know your thoughts as always, guys. Comment below, like, share and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time.